My name is Paul Wilson, and since I was 8 years old, I've been a magician. And my favorite form of magic has always been card magic. I love card tricks, but magic with cards, it's something different. If it's something that interests you, if you've always wanted to learn how to perform some simple card tricks or to perform sleight of hand magic with cards, I'm going to teach you an introductory course that will give you a sense of how these tricks are performed and how the sleights work. It is an introductory course. It's very quick, it's very inexpensive, and the idea is to introduce you to the type of technique you'll be learning if you want to go deeper into the rabbit hole. These techniques are very simple, but they will require practice. But along the way, you will learn tricks you can do right away to share with your friends. And the more of these techniques you learn, the more convincing and the more impossible you can make these card tricks look. This is an introductory course to card magic. I hope you join me. For this first lesson, I'd like to share with you two fantastic card tricks. These are what we call self-working card tricks. By that we mean there's no physical sleight of hand in order to produce the final effect. Now, as you go deeper into the lessons and you learn other techniques, you'll find that there are ways in which you can embellish these tricks and add perhaps more convincing procedures. You can shuffle the deck before or after the effect begins, for example. That's not entirely necessary. The most important thing I want you to learn from this particular lesson is not just how to do these tricks and how to make the final outcome easy and accessible to you. It's more the presentation and how to elevate it above being just a series of actions with cards that produces a seemingly impossible result. Presentation isn't up to me. I'll give you some examples and I'll make some suggestions, but the great thing about magic is that you can add your own presentations and you can find your own way of doing it. The main advice I want to give you is to keep it short and direct. It is possible to make great big long rolling stories and have a card trick in the middle of it or be part of it. But unless you're a really good storyteller and you can really hold an audience with the power of your voice and the ideas of your story, I say stick to the card trick. It's a good thing to be able to do that later on, but these are pretty strong little card tricks, and if you just have the right idea attached to them, then you can make them much, much stronger than just saying, I can find a card you just thought of, or I can make the four aces appear on the table. So presentation is very, very important. But don't think because I say you have to present this, you have to be an actor, or you have to suddenly become a comedian, or maybe even a conversationalist. A lot of us don't have much to say in conversation, but in the context of a card trick, you can just suggest an idea that will make the card trick appear almost completely different in the mind of the audience. I'm going to show you the two tricks, show you how they work, and then we'll talk about the types of ideas you can use. For the first trick, we're going to let people have a look at the cards. I don't know if you noticed, but your brain was absorbing very important information, things that you probably weren't even conscious of. So even if you were to cut or shuffle the deck, it would know things that you aren't completely aware of. Now let's say we were going to use that information in an interesting way. If I deal the cards on the table, I'm going to keep dealing until somebody asks me to stop. And when they say stop, we stop right there. And then the same person should cut anywhere they like. So let's say they cut here. Now we want to mark that exact location. We'll come back to that later. This is where they decided to stop. And if we deal this into three piles, separating the cards they stopped at into three, I would say roughly equal piles, those divisions, as they're spaced out here, will bring us to these three cards. And if we look here and we see we cut to an ace. This is the ace of spades. And amazingly, that's exactly where they cut. This is a pretty great trick. It's one of those tricks that once you know the secret, it's a little difficult to remember how good it was when you didn't know how it worked. The secret is very simple. The four aces are already on top of the deck. And from this position, we're going to show the deck, but not show everything. So we're not going to go all the way to the end. And the suggestion, the presentation we're saying is that by having a look at the deck without us saying anything, they've absorbed information which they can use subconsciously. And as I say this, I'm going to cut the deck, but I'm not really going to cut. My thumb is going to pull on the top card. And in that cutting action, only one card goes to the bottom. Very, very simple. Not really a slight, it's simply a slip cut of one card to the very bottom of the deck. And what that does is places one ace on the bottom and 3 on top. They can stop you anywhere, but it would be advisable to make sure they stop after maybe at least 10 or 12 cards. So I begin dealing while telling them that we're going to use that information that they've just absorbed subconsciously. And then I say, stop me anywhere. Once they stop, they're going to cut. Now don't forget that ace is on the bottom. And here we're going to use a very powerful subtlety. When they cut, we pick these up, turn them, and drop them on top. Later we're going to come back to this, and because of the misdirection created by the time process, they will forget exactly what was where during the cut. So when you turn this over, this seems perfectly natural that this is the position at which they cut. In actual fact, you forced that position because they cut like so, and you turned it here. And of course that card was always on the bottom. And this is called the cross-cut force. Here, because the first 3 cards dealt were the 3 aces, the last 3 cards dealt will be the 3 aces. So here you deal out and you talk about how they decided where to cut, but you're going to split it into 3 even piles. And what you're suggesting without saying the words is that you've taken a packet and split it into 3 groups, but by dealing it, what you're really doing is bringing those cards back to the top. But people aren't conscious of that. They don't think of these things, especially if they're unfamiliar with the way that cards can be distributed. But as you've just learned, those first 3 cards dealt are the last 3 cards dealt, even when you deal it into 3 piles. So no matter how many cards are in here, you will always end up with 3 aces on top of the pack. We go to here, we turn this over, and we show an ace. And then we turn over these 3 cards. Very simple, and you can do this trick immediately. Do practice it a few times so that you understand where everything goes. And a little suggestion is that you don't have to do it with the aces, you can do it with the kings. You can do it with any cards. You could, for example, do it with 4 completely random seeming cards and have a prediction written inside an envelope or inside your wallet, and that prediction would reveal what cards they stopped at. So you can do more with this trick than just produce the aces. And that's entirely up to you. The great thing about card magic is that you can be incredibly creative and come up with ideas that are new to you. That doesn't mean they'll be new to the art of magic. There's so many ideas out there that many of the things you'll come up with will have been thought of before. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't take that journey. I'm going to read your mind, and I'm going to use my imagination to find a playing card. I would like if somebody were to cut off a small packet of cards, any number, and secretly count those cards. When they do that, it doesn't matter how many they take, this will work. But you would not know the number. For the sake of explanation, we'll imagine they cut off 4. This will be their secret number. Now we take the cards, and these can be shuffled again. And we tell them we're going to show them cards one at a time and put the cards into a pile. Now I don't look at those cards, I can look away as I show them these cards. Their goal is to remember the card at the number that they cut off in the secret packet, which would be held somewhere under the table or in their pocket. This means they will remember the 4th card, in this case the 7 of spades. And you're going to continue dealing. But as you deal, you secretly count. So this is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's an easy number to remember, 13. And you put these cards on top. Somewhere in here is a card that they are only thinking of. They saw all the cards, they thought of one that was dictated by the number of cards they cut off at random. You cannot possibly know what that card is at the moment because the deck was shuffled. But when they return these cards, you say, please put the pile back on top. At this point, you now know exactly where their card is, no matter which one they thought of. By replacing that packet on top, their card will be the 14th card down. So you remember when I showed them cards one at a time and I reversed the order? I showed them 13 cards. And now if I count 13 cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, the next card, the 14th card, is the card they're thinking of, 100% of the time. It works all the time. So how do we use this? How do we make this into a trick? So first of all, we say, cut off a random group of cards, count those, don't let me know what you've got, and shuffle the cards again. So at this point, you know nothing. You don't know how many cards they cut off. You don't know the position of a single card because everything has been shuffled. It's a very fair position. Now, the number here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when I show them the cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is the card they're going to remember. Now, you don't even know what this is, but they remember, in this case, the ace of diamonds. Don't forget that, the ace of diamonds. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. These get picked up and put here. Somewhere in here is a card they're thinking of. And when they return the number of cards they cut off, that card is the number that you dealt onto the table, reversing the cards one at a time, plus 1. So we put 13 cards on the table. The selection is at the 14th position. So how do we use that? Because at the 14th position, what I'm going to do is take off 7 cards. There's 7. Turn them over and say, do you see your card here? Okay. No. These go down. I'm going to repeat that, but this time I'm only going to take 6 cards. Turn these over, spread, and say, do you see your card here? Now notice how I've spread a little bit further. So when I close the spread up, what I'm going to do is pick up this extra card by holding a tiny little, what we call a break with the pinky. And so as we close up, that's the extra card. When I take these and put them here, this card is now reversed in amongst these cards. And now you can go through and show the rest of the deck in exactly the same way, and their card has vanished. Okay. And if you like, you can simply say hocus pocus and their card returns and it's reversed. So how do we use presentation to get beyond that? Well, first of all, you're going to think of a card, and I want it to be completely at random, so cut off a small packet, count those cards, don't let me see them. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to show you some cards one at a time. I want you to remember the card at your number, in this case the Queen of Clubs. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. These go on top, these go here. We know it's the 14th card. Say, look, I want you to concentrate on the card that you're thinking of. Don't tell me what it is, but I'm going to take it out invisibly and put it right here. That's your card. Let me prove it to you. So if I take some cards off, there's 7 cards. Do you see your card here? No. Down they go. Now we take 6 cards. Do you see your card here? No. Now remember, it was the Queen of Clubs, which is this card right here. So as I pick up, I get that extra card and I add it, so it's really here. And we go through the rest of the deck in the same way until the card has clearly vanished. Now we cut the cards and we say, look, if we take this card that I put aside, I'm going to put it into the deck. What was the card for the first time? What card were you thinking of? The Queen of Clubs. And sure enough, it reappears reversed in the deck. So this uses a very simple mathematical principle that's guaranteed to work, but it's that presentation of taking an invisible card and placing it aside that makes it strong. Maybe you have a better idea. If you do, I'd love to hear about it. For this lesson, I'm going to show you a very simple false shuffle, a way to mix the cards up, but at the same time have a certain amount of control over the deck. So not all of these cards were shuffled. And we're going to use an in-jog control. And the term in-jog refers to how a card is pulled from the deck and pulled slightly inward like this, and then used as a marker so that after the shuffle you can pick up at that in-jog and return the deck so the top card stays on top. Let's begin with a simple card trick, and then I'll explain exactly how the shuffle works. So first of all, let's see what happens if we shuffle the cards and we need a random number, anything at all. 3, that's good. So if we shuffle the cards some more, and I'm going to make some packets on the table. So let's ask somebody to cut about a quarter of the deck over to here, same sort of size over to here, and again over to there. Now, do you remember the number that we had? It was 3, right? Well, we're going to place that number on the bottom one card at a time. 1, 2, and 3. And then one card on top of each one of the other packets. Now, you ask them to do the same for each packet. There's 1, 2, and 3. They do all of this. You don't have to touch anything. And again under here, 1, 2, and 3. And even though we shuffled the cards, even though the number was completely random, 1, 2, and 3, and even though they've done everything themselves, amazingly, they've been able to find the 4 aces. This is a wonderful trick called Poker Player's Picnic, and I'm going to show you a great variation from Roberto Giobbi's card college books, which I highly, highly recommend. And before we get to that, let's talk about that overhand shuffle. There are many false shuffles and many ways to control cards. This is a very simple way. And I'd recommend trying to get it right from the beginning. There are some simple rules. When you hold the cards, you want to hold them quite loosely. When you shuffle, there are 2 types of shuffle. You can grab a packet with your thumb by hitting that edge and drawing down. You can also grab a single card by hitting the top card and pulling like so. And when I say pull, I don't necessarily pull entirely with one hand. Both hands work together. So if I grab a group like this, this is the top of the deck. Okay, this is where the 4 aces are. So if I grab this and immediately draw a card, but bring my hand inwards slightly, so that this finger, which is right about here, notice that this first finger controls the front. This finger ends up contacting that card. So when I continue shuffling, at the end, I'm in contact with that particular position. All I have to do is press with my thumb and I can create a break, cut, and it'll bring it to the top. So obviously using this technique, you can shuffle like so. You could even continue shuffling to that break if you want to. That takes a little bit more practice, but you will get to that card. This is the very simplest of all controls to do. What it means, if you've got 4 aces secretly on top, very simple to shuffle the cards at the beginning, and then when you're ready, continue shuffling until you hit that break, and then throw everything on top. Or an easier version, make your little in-jog, continue shuffling, and then make the break and cut at that position. Now the only difference I've added to this particular routine, when I was very young, I liked this trick a lot, so I put a 3 on top, which is necessary for the method. So I'd begin by shuffling and saying we need a random card. I would shuffle to that position. Let's see, 3. That'll do perfectly. Put that in the middle and then have them cut. Now remember, the 4 aces are here. So this packet has 4 aces on top. 1, 2, 3, and 4. The other packets can be anything at all. It really doesn't matter. And so long as they put 3 cards to the bottom, 1, 2, 3, and 1 on top of all, for all of these packets, what happens is, by the time you get to the last packet, which has the 3 aces on it, in the process, you've added 3 cards on top of those 3 aces, those 4 aces, like so. So when they move 3, 1, 2, 3, that gets rid of those cards. And when they put 1 on top of each one of the other piles, that simply places an ace on top of all the other piles. A very, very simple procedure. So one more time with the aces face up, they put 3 to the bottom, 1 on top of each. They do it here, 1, 2, and 3. Now remember, people who aren't used to handling cards, they're not going to be terribly neat, but this is a simple procedure for them to follow. 1 on top of each. There's your 3 cards. You get rid of those, and you put 1 on top of each. This is a wonderful card trick. Now Roberto Giobbi's book, Card College, takes this another step further. Exactly the same routine, but you're going to begin not with 4 aces on top. Instead of the 4 aces, you will also add 2 cards, 2 completely random cards, and a 5. And so this is the position you're in. You have the 4 aces here, 2 random cards, and then a 5. This is important. Watch what happens. You can do an overhand shuffle first to show that the cards are mixed. Cut, quarter over to here, quarter over to here, and quarter over to here. Remember this position. Now we turn over the top cards that they've cut to, and we put that value to the bottom of each packet. So an 8. So 8 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 1 card on top of each one of these. Here's a queen, which could be a 10 or a 12. That number gets moved to the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is clearly random cards being distributed. Another 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, random cards. There's no way you could have known where these cards were coming from. And then a 5. Now remember we placed that 5 there earlier? We just put 3 cards on top of the 2 cards that were already there. And because of that 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this brings the 4 aces back to the top, so that when you distribute them, you're back in that position. And it really looks like 4 random cuts managed to locate 4 aces in the deck. This is a terrific trick, and it's called Poker Player's Picnic. So for this trick, we're going to use the riffle shuffle, and I'll teach you the riffle shuffle in a second. But to begin, if we shuffle the cards up, and I'm going to ask somebody to maybe think of a small number, something between 1 and 13, and to deal that number on the table. To then remember the next card. Let's say it was this one, the Ace of Hearts. Drop these back on top, and I'm going to be able to find the Ace of Hearts. But to make it particularly difficult, ask them to cut and shuffle the cards, like so. Cut again, and then ask them to shuffle the cards again. And in this position, I can reveal exactly what card they thought of. Do you think you'd be able to reveal that card from this information? Pretty difficult, pretty challenging. The great thing about this trick is it's a very, very puzzling effect. It might be possible, of course, for somebody to figure out which card you picked at the beginning, but after 2 shuffles, how on earth can you figure out that the Ace of Hearts was the card? I'm going to show you how. First of all, I'm going to teach you the riffle shuffle. Riffle shuffle is a very powerful move. It's used in many types of card magic. It's used a lot in gambling or cheating style magic. And to do it, it's very important to have a light touch. If you put a lot of pressure on these and do this, then the cards will be very tight. It also is easier once you learn to riffle softly. Now at the beginning, what's going to happen is you'll lose control of these cards and they'll maybe shoot out of your hand a little bit. But if you start by learning to just hold at one end, put one finger on the top, and you'll see this a lot in card magic, is that we curl that finger and place it on top of the deck to add a little bit of control. Or even on the bottom, the way that we hold cards, sometimes we put that finger on the bottom, it gives us a little bit of control. But here, this finger's on top, and it's applying some downward pressure so the thumb can riffle gently. And it does this with half the deck, like so. We do the same on the other side. And by putting them together at the same time, they riffle. Now notice that I'm still holding them in this position, and I can push like so, and then release that pressure. And that stops them from binding up too much. As we release, they then go together quite easily. Push them. And if you put your thumbs at the back and your fingers at the end and push together and then squeeze your thumbs and fingers together at that corner, it's a lovely way to make the cards complete the shuffle, like that. So this is a very pretty way to shuffle the cards, but it allows you to do some pretty sneaky things. For example, let's imagine we go back to the trick we did just a while ago. In the first and second lessons, we found 4 aces. So if those 4 aces were on top of the deck, we can keep them there using an overhand shuffle, or we can keep them there using a riffle shuffle, or both. But when I cut and I shuffle, if I continue shuffling like so, you can see these aces which are on top get mixed in with everything else. But if I learn to shuffle so they land at the end, those aces remain on top. Okay? So very simply, you cut, shuffle, and I make sure that the top portion stays there, like so. It's exactly the same if the aces were on the bottom. With the aces on the bottom, I simply start the shuffle here and then continue shuffling, like so. And to make it more deceptive, instead of riffling those off, I lift up above them. So I don't riffle them off, I start the shuffle above, like so. And that maintains those cards on the bottom. So the riffle shuffle is a very good way to hold cards on the top and bottom of the deck. And if you combine that with an overhand shuffle of some sort, you can find that cards can be shuffled in all sorts of interesting ways, and it's very hard to follow where the aces might be. But we're not going to use 4 aces for this particular trick. Clearly, if you go back to the tricks you've already learned, you can now use this shuffle and the overhand shuffle in order to make the trick more deceptive. But let's take out all of the clubs. And we're going to put these on top of the deck, and these will help us identify what card has been selected under incredibly difficult conditions. Here are all of the clubs. Okay. I'm going to put these on top, and I'm going to memorize this top card, the 8 of clubs. That's the only one I have to remember. This goes into my card box, and when I'm ready to perform, I can take the deck out and do an overhand shuffle. All I have to do is make sure I don't hit those clubs that are here. Take these, in jog, and overhand shuffle, like so. There's so many cards being stacked here that I wouldn't risk trying to do a riffle shuffle, because I'd have to do a riffle shuffle like this. So an overhand shuffle is perfect. Another version of the overhand shuffle is to shuffle from the bottom, like so. But it's not so good to simply put these to the back, to shuffle a few and put these to the back to avoid these. So sometimes I'll shuffle a few and then I'll gesture with the cards or talk and then put them on top rather than putting them directly there. So our clubs are all on top. And this is a very baffling trick. And people who understand card tricks can be fooled very badly by this. You know the 8 of clubs. That's all you need to know. When they deal cards on the table and stop, so long as they don't go past the clubs, the card they look at, the 9 of clubs in this case, ends up directly beside this card. But you're about to riffle shuffle the cards, which means that those cards are probably going to be separated. So how does that help you? Well, let's have a quick look. As you remember, all of the clubs are on top. Okay? Here is the selection, the 9 of clubs. The next club up from it is the 8 of clubs. Don't forget that. Now a riffle shuffle. Cut. You cut for them and you say, I want you to riffle shuffle, and you let them do the riffle shuffle. If they can't do it, you can do it for them, but it's much better if they do it. Now cut again. When you cut, make sure you don't cut too shallow. You want to cut nice and deep, just past halfway. And they riffle shuffle again. And now when you spread the cards out, you'll see that those clubs are now separated throughout the deck. However, if you look through for that 8 of clubs, no matter how the cards are shuffled or how many cards are between it and the next card, that next card will be the selection. So all of those clubs are basically pointing the way, thanks to the one you remembered. The next club along is guaranteed to be the selection. It's a very easy way to do a very powerful and baffling effect. And if you're looking for a presentation, you can tell people, and this is absolutely true, that this is how card cheaters were able to beat the game of blackjack in casinos all over the world using something called shuffle tracking. And so you can have them choose a card, do the shuffles, and you say, I'm absolutely sure that the card you picked is this one. And although you've used a stack and a key card in combination with the shuffle, what you're doing is exactly what professional blackjack cheaters or advantage players, they weren't cheating, used to beat the casinos. It's a very similar method, and I think that's a good presentation. So this is the riffle shuffle. Very simple, very easy to do. Just remember, it's a light touch. And once you can shuffle legitimately, it's very easy to hold some cards back on top or to hold some cards on the bottom. The move we're going to discuss in this lesson is called the glide. And it's a very simple version of an extremely difficult move called the second deal. The second deal is used by cheaters and magicians to deal not the top card of the deck, but the second card down. So This obviously is going to take a long time for you to practice and learn. Instead, you're going to learn how to do it on the bottom, but you're going to learn it instantly, and you can perform very powerful effects. The one we're about to do is called Design for Laughter. It's one of my favorite card tricks from the book Royal Road to Card Magic, a book I highly recommend. There are other versions of this that go further back, but this is a very simple, clean version. To begin with, you're going to have a card selected. So ask somebody to remove any card by spreading the cards between your hands. And the way that we do that is we hold them in what we call dealer's position. There are many dealer's positions. Simple one is to put your pinky at the back and your forefinger at the front and 2 fingers at the side. And this will give you a lot of control. If you move the pinky here, this is a little bit more relaxed. And the idea is to spread cards into the hands one at a time, like so, in a spread, so people can pick a card. You can learn how to fan cards. We're not going to cover that right now, but simply ask someone to remove a card from the spread by moving them from hand to hand with your thumb. Okay, practice that for a bit. So a card will be removed. This will be the selection, the 6 of diamonds. You won't see what that selection is. And to place that card, begin an overhand shuffle and then invite someone to place the card back on top. When they do that, you're going to continue the shuffle, but when you continue, you're going to in-jog a card and shuffle off. And then you're going to do again, get a break and cut. So this is the card. And then shuffle 1 card to the bottom. This is their card. It's now on the bottom. And then continue shuffling like so. And you can shuffle some more. The way you do that is you apply pressure on the bottom, so when you lift up, it stays on the bottom, like so. So this is a very simple bottom control to maintain a card on the bottom, just with a little bit of pressure, so you know where their card is. You now tell them that you will find their card by a mixture of luck and psychology. Ask somebody to cut off about 1/3 and put it here, and about 1/3 of these and put it there. And by doing this, they have managed to cut perhaps to their card. That would be luck. The psychology part comes in knowing which one of these is the card. So you pick these up and you show it and you look at them and you pretend to read their body language and say, I don't think this is your card. You turn it over and you place the card over here. Same thing here. You drop these on top, turn these over and say, that's another 10, but I don't think this is your card. Turn it over, take that card and place it here. We do the same again, drop it here, and again we show the card. This time they actually see their card. So when you say, you know, I don't think this is your card, and place it down, it seems like you've made a mistake, and you can indicate the cards if you like, but clearly you've made a critical error. But if you name a small number, and let's say they say 7 or 6 or 5, whatever small number they name, say, I'm pretty sure that your card will be that number down in the deck. So you said 6, right? So that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, 4, 5, and the 6th card goes right here. Of course, during this performance, everybody thinks you've made a terrible mistake and that the card is here. But in actual fact, the selection is here. This is a very satisfying card trick. It'll be one of your favorites, I promise. But the presentation is important. If you simply control the card and then find it using this sequence, it's not as interesting as talking about psychology and feigning confidence and making the audience think, well, he's making a fool of him or herself. In actual fact, of course, you get a very powerful ending. So one more time, here's how it's done. We control that card to the bottom. We keep it on the bottom with our shuffle. We have them cut into 3 piles. We pick up the first pile, but we pick it up like so, long ends. We turn it over. Notice where the fingers are as I do this. Turn it over and take the bottom card. I'm simply applying pressure with my fingers. Repeat over here. Turn this over. Take the bottom card. But these go face down, of course. Repeat here. Drop this on top. Now this, of course, is the selection. But as I turn it over, I actually slide back that card. This is the glide. And what happens is my fingers simply pull back a little bit to expose this card. And this is why it's like that second deal that we did at the beginning. You're doing a second deal from the bottom. This isn't the bottom card that's coming out, it's the second from the bottom. After that has come, take the next second from the bottom card out as well and indicate those cards. Put it on the bottom, covering up that card, so you can flash the bottom of the deck. They are now convinced this is their card. And now when they name a small number, you will glide back the card on the second position. So you begin by taking the first card genuinely. There's 1, and as you show this card, you glide back, and then you take the next one, 2, and again you pull the next one, 3, and let's say they say 4. On 4, you take this card, and you pull it out, like so, and you leave it face down. And now you have this beautiful reveal here and here. Here's a very important word of advice. At this particular point here, you have 2 choices. You can reveal this card and then these, or you can reveal these and then this card. You're going to find that revealing this card first is much more powerful, because they are so convinced that can't be their card that when you turn it over, there will be a very powerful reaction. And the second reaction is to grab these cards and turn them over. And that's what you want. You want that, let's look at these, and then it's not there, and you have a powerful reaction. You do not get that if you turn these over first and then this card. And this is a very important lesson for you to pick up here, is that the process is more than just the sleights or the mechanics of the trick. It's how you reveal the trick. It's how you perform the trick. It's the way that you choose how to reveal which group of cards first that will completely change how people react to the magic that you're performing. And if you always remember that magic is more than a sequence of moves put together to produce a desired effect, that if you do it right, it can produce an even greater effect inside the mind of your spectator, then no matter how much or how little sleight of hand you're doing, the effect you're performing can be much greater in their mind than what you're actually doing in real life. For this lesson, I'm going to teach you a very simple but powerful sleight called the glimpse. After a deck has been shuffled, it's very important to be able to get secret information as you retrieve the deck. So let's say the deck is on the table. Now as I pick it up here and put it in my hand, I now know that the bottom card is the 7 of clubs. Okay, that's a very simple glimpse. All that's happening is in order to pick it up, I get my thumb under there. And as I do that and lay it into my hand, I turn it just enough that I can get a peek of that 7. And it has to be just enough. You can't look like that. But when you do it and you put it in your hand, you lift it up to put it in your hand, it never feels like you looked at anything. So I get the 7 of clubs. And if I shuffle, and I continue shuffling all the way to the end, you notice how I take single cards at the end, I can move that 7 to the top. There's another powerful use of the overhand shuffle. I can also use the control where I slip the card back onto the bottom to keep it there, or continue shuffling all the way to the end and take single cards until the last card, which is of course the 7. So the glimpse is a very powerful move. It can give you information that can be very valuable in the course of a trick. And here we're going to introduce the idea of key cards again. We'll talk about key cards in a later lesson, but the key card we're going to use here is the one that's on the bottom. So as soon as we have a little peek of that card, we keep it on the bottom with a shuffle, and we invite somebody to choose any card that they like. Okay. The card they look at in this case is the 10 of hearts, and you can do 2 things. You could say to somebody, say stop anywhere, and take brief packets of cards. So when they put the 10 of hearts on top, you drop everything else on top, which will place the 7 right beside the 10. Okay, this is a very simple way to get a key card beside that card, and we'll talk about other ways later on. So now I have some information. Thanks to my glimpse, I now know the card right beside whatever card they selected, even though the deck has been completely shuffled. And when I take this, I'm going to go through and memorize the cards. This is what I tell them. I'm not memorizing anything at all. But as I go through, I am going to do one very simple thing. Okay, and that's done. I'm ready. So if I cut here, I'm ready to produce a miracle. Believe it or not, this deck of cards has the capability to reveal any card you like. Now you're thinking of a particular card. I don't actually have to remember what that card is now, but I'm going to tell them, for example, that the Queen of Spades, which may not be your card, we know of course it's not their card. The Queen of Spades, if I simply say its name, can be produced from this deck purely by spelling the Queen of Spades. So watch, Queen of Spades. Queenofspades, Queen of Spades, works just like that. Now you give them the deck and you say, do it with your card. What card did you think of? 10 of Hearts. Tap the deck, TENOFHEARTS, and they find their card. It's a very, very simple trick. It's called Gray's Spelling Trick, and it is one of my favorites. And it's because you do a demonstration at the beginning. That gets a big reaction. When you hand the cards to them and it works with the card they're only thinking of, it makes a much more powerful impact. So how does it work? Well, I take the cards back, I glimpse the bottom card. This is the Queen of Spades in this case. I keep it on the bottom. I let them choose any card they like so. They can put it anywhere that they want. And when they do that, I drop these on top. And when I spread, I look for my key card, the Queen of Spades. There it is. And the one before it will be the selection. So as soon as I get to this position, I remember the one before it, and I begin spelling silently, pretending that I'm memorizing the deck. But I really, in my mind, I'm saying QUEENOFDIAMONDS. And that's going to spell to the Queen of Diamonds. But then I see the next card and I repeat it with this card. JACKOFSPADES. And now I'm in this position. Now there are 5 cards left here. I can simply cut these to the bottom. Or if you feel like you want to do a little extra work, run them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as you apparently shuffle. And now you can say, you know, you can do this with any card. For example, the Jack of Spades. JACKOFSPADES. It's amazing that this gets such a strong reaction, but when you hand them the cards and tell them that it works with the card they're thinking of, most of the time they won't even believe you. Queen of Diamonds. QUEENOFDIAMONDS. Just like that. Now, there are many ways to get a glimpse, and I'm going to give you a way that didn't exist when many of these card tricks were being invented. Likely, I'm sure that you own something like one of these. If you put this on the table, you should be able to see, as you bring this over, the face card of the deck without having to do anything, because this acts as a mirror. So you can use this as you bring it over to get your glimpse without doing anything at all. And you can even hand somebody a card and have a look at it. This, of course, is the Ace of Clubs. So you can use this that's probably on the table between you as a secret device to get information, either as a key card or learn what a selection is, very, very simply. And this is the glimpse. There are many ways to do it. Maybe you have a better idea. I leave it up to you. So in this lesson, we're going to talk about the key card principle and some really clever ways of setting a key card and some tricks that I think are really genuinely ingenious. And the first one is called Do As I Do. It uses 2 decks, and the decks are both shuffled. So shuffle your cards there, please, Dan. And then you trade decks and have each other shuffle each other's decks. And I remember the bottom card. So I can hold it on the bottom as I shuffle like this. And because I've got a glimpse of that card, I can shuffle this way and still keep that Jack of Diamonds on the bottom. This is my key card. So when we trade decks back again, I know the bottom card of Dan's deck. It doesn't matter what the condition of this deck is. I tell Dan to cut somewhere. Look at the card he cut to. I don't have to remember my card. He remembers his. And then cut this packet. Complete the cut. And now the Jack of Diamonds is right beside his actual selection. I know exactly what card is beside his. Then we tell him to lift up half of these and drop them in the middle. And it really feels like he's lost his card. You could even have him cut the cards and complete the cut if you want to. This won't change a thing. And cut him again. Those 2 cards will remain together throughout that procedure. So when we trade decks back and I'm now looking at his deck, The Jack of Diamonds, wherever that is, will be right beside his selection. Let's have a look. Jack of Diamonds, there it is, and the one directly under it is his card. So when he finds the 8 of Diamonds in his pack and puts it here, this creates a miracle. So, what else can we do with the key card? Oh, we can take these cards away for now. A very powerful effect that can be done with the key card is one of my favorite tricks to perform in a bar, especially if somebody's very challenging. It's called the circus card trick, and you may have seen it before, but the way that we do it here I think is a little bit more elegant than the way some people might know it. Again, after the shuffle, I remember the bottom card. I continue shuffling like so, and I tell somebody to deal the cards on the table one at a time. Stop anywhere they want and remember the card they're looking at, and then cut the cards in their hand and drop them onto the cards on the table, and then cut as many times as they want before giving me the cards back. So I now know one thing. I now know that bottom card that I remembered, the Queen, is directly beside his card. So somewhere in the middle of the deck, I'll find that the Queen of Clubs is directly beside the selection, the 6 of Clubs. And it comes directly before the 6 of Clubs, which is important. Because now I'm going to go through the cards like this, one card at a time. At this point, I don't know what their card is. But I'm trying to act as if this is somehow giving me some information. But as I see my key card, I continue dealing and I don't stop. But I remember the next card, which is their card, and I leave it peeking out just a little bit so they can still see it. And at this point, I stop and I say, you know what? The next card I turn over will be your card. And at this point, they will bet you money that it isn't, because they're convinced you're going to turn this card over. Bet as much as you like, maybe bet for a drink or whoever pays for lunch. And as soon as you're ready, take this card out and turn it over. And that's the circus card trick. It's a very powerful revelation. The only thing I'd say is be careful. If you do this for too much money, there's a good chance that you might get punched. So let's take this to the next level. And I'm going to teach you a trick right now that will absolutely fool magicians who are not familiar with it. So it can fool absolutely anybody. Do me a favor, shuffle those cards. And we are going to perform a trick under impossible conditions. So if you were to cut off any number of cards, like 10 or 20 or less, it's up to you, those, and shuffle them. Okay, I'm going to show you the cards. I want you to just think of any card that you see there.
Okay.
Yeah, got one?
Yeah.
And then shuffle again. Take your card out and put it here. Don't let anybody see it. All right. Cut off about half of the cards on the deck and shuffle those. Then put them back. I can't now know, if you put those back, what cards are on top of the deck. So if you put your card on top, I don't know any of the cards that are near your card.
Yeah.
Pick these up and shuffle those as well. And drop those on top. So I can't possibly know any of the cards on top.
Correct.
I know roughly where it is, so cut the deck and complete the cut. I'll look away. Okay. So somewhere in here is a card that you selected. Let's see how we get on. Give me your finger. Nice and straight, if you can. And I'm going to go across like this. Let's see. Go right. Push it. There it is.
That's it.
Is that it?
That's it.
Not bad for mind reading. I believe this is one of the great uses of a key card, and it shows you that a key card does not have to go directly beside the card that the person is thinking of. In this case, the key card is actually quite far away. So the deck is shuffled. When you take it back, you glimpse the bottom card and you keep it on the bottom, and you do another riffle shuffle and it stays right where it is. You can now have them cut off any number of cards, shuffle those cards. But when you take them back and show them the cards, I'm secretly counting the cards in my hand. So there's 6, there's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There are 13 cards here. So it doesn't matter to me what card they remove as the card they thought of and put it here. I don't care what that card is at this moment. I just know that these cards add up to 13. Okay? They cut off half of these, shuffle them and put them on top. And now we have them put their card on top. But I point out, I'm very, very clear, because they shuffled those cards, I can't know the cards that are underneath the selection, and that's true. They then shuffle these, so I don't know any of the cards on top of their selection. That's also true. Don't forget my key card, it's right here. And then they cut and complete the cut. When I spread to my key card, I know one thing. I know that there were 13 cards in the packet that they cut off, and that the card they thought of was removed and ended up on the bottom of that 13 card packet. And the 13 cards starts right after my key card, the 4 of hearts. So when I take their finger and I'm moving over, I'm really counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and there it is. There's the selection right there. And that's it. All I have to do is count those cards that they cut off, remember that number, and then count from my key card to that number, and I will find the card they're thinking of. And by pointing out all of these conditions about shuffling these cards and then shuffling these cards, these distract the person, but it also makes the effect stronger by making them care about how fair and impossible this trick actually is. This is one of the great tricks of card magic, and if you really want to fool somebody and make them care about how much they've been fooled, this is a great place to start. The ability to hold breaks and to add groups of cards secretly to other cards is a very useful skill in card magic. And the routine I'm about to teach you is a very clever way to do a classic of magic called the ace assembly. And it works like this. We have 4 aces. I'm going to take the 4 aces and put those on the table like so. So clearly the 4 aces are on the table. They're definitely here, all 4 of them. They're not here, so they have to be in this position. Some people doubt me, so let's have a look. Yes, they're definitely there. If we take the 4 aces, 1, 2, 3, and 4, turn them over, and very carefully, without making any moves, lay them on the table. If you're watching closely, you should be able to tell me what one of these aces is. Which one is this? Did you guess hearts? If you guessed hearts, you were absolutely correct. Now I'm going to pretend to practice a little poker game here by taking 3 cards for each one of these aces. And if I take these, you can see that clearly that's not a very good hand. Even with the ace, that's not a very good hand. Here we have an ace, a king, a 4, and a 2. That's not so good. And here we have a 2, a 6, a 4, and another ace. Not very good. But here we have a 9, a jack, and a 5. So again, not the best hand, but it's a good start because I know where all the other aces are. For example, I know that one of the aces is right over here. Done. Another one. Boom. Done. I won't even touch these cards. Oh, I did touch those cards. Too late. It's already happened. And all 4 aces have gathered over here. This really is a powerful trick if it's presented well. In order to do this, you need to learn how to hold tiny breaks and add groups of cards secretly. Shuffle your deck, take the 4 aces, and as you put them on top of the deck, hold the 4 aces together and pull off the top card and put it right back on the bottom again as you put the aces down. The reason you're doing this is to create the idea of suspicion, so they're not sure if these are really the 4 aces. These are on the table. Turn these over and say, no, the aces aren't here. And as I do that, I spread off 3 cards. Put them back and hold a tiny break. They must be here. And as I pick them up with the deck hand, like this. This helps to conceal that tiny break. And I push them off to show you 4 aces. But as I square, I'm going to pick up everything that's above that break and turn the deck over. So what I really have now is 7 cards. These cards go on top, and again, I hold a tiny break. Spread these off, like so. Square them up, and then pick up everything at that break. And as I do this, I'm going to move one of the aces forward a little bit to protect that front edge so you can't see that lump here. So that when I turn everything over, these 3 cards are not aces, but the last one is. But in that procedure, it really feels like these should all be aces. So let's do it one more time. There are the 4 aces. I pretend to make a move, put it on the table. I show them that they're not here, and then when I pick up the deck and show you, you can see these are the aces. I pick up everything over the break as I turn over the deck with one hand by putting the thumb underneath, like so. I put these on top and I maintain that break. I show the 4 aces. I leave that front ace forward a little bit so when I turn everything over and they're watching, it really feels like these are the 4 aces, but 1 ace is here and the other 3 aces are here. I'm now going to tell a very powerful lie. I say I'm going to take 3 cards for each one of the aces. And as I do that, I'm pushing off groups of 3 cards with my thumb. This will take a bit of practice. But I don't take 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of 3. I take 5. So I take 3 cards for each one of the aces, and then I take another 3, another 3, another 3, and another 3. And nobody ever notices that I take 1 more than I'm supposed to. But when I square up and turn this packet over, the aces are at the bottom. I hold that little break. Again, we're holding that break. This is the skill you're learning here. You take these 3, turn them over onto this packet. These 3, keeping that break, onto here. These 3, keeping that break. And now, because you took that extra group of 3, if I take off 2 cards, 1, 2, you see 3, but I don't do that, or you'll see the aces. And again, my fingers go underneath and pick up at that break. I go forward a little bit, so when I turn over, it's these 3 cards are the aces, and they go on top. At this point, you've already done the trick. The aces are already here. But as we say, if you've made the cow, you might as well milk it. We pretend that we do this, or we make these special gambling moves, and each time we reveal that one of the aces is gone. I'm not even going to touch these. Oh, I did touch them. Too late. It's gone. And finally, all 4 aces are here. And so the skill you want to learn is the ability to control packets of cards while holding a break underneath them. Whether it's a break in the middle of the deck before you get into the pass, or whether it's a break underneath 2 cards on top of the deck before you do a double lift. The ability to hold a break and to add cards secretly underneath is very useful, very powerful, and you'll be using a lot when you practice more advanced card magic. I think this is one of the greatest card tricks ever invented, and it teaches the next sleight very, very well. To begin with, let's give these a quick shuffle, and would you do me a favor, cut off about 10 or 12 cards, it's up to you. Okay, very good. Now I want you to count those onto the table, 1 card at a time, like this, into a pile right about here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Great, and take those cards, all of them.
Okay.
Put your hand on top, just there's fine. And I want you to say stop anywhere you like.
Stop.
Okay, so we've stopped at this position, and is there a number on that card or a letter?
Number.
A number, yeah. What is it? It's a 3. Because sometimes, you know, if it's a king or a queen or an ace, that doesn't make any sense. We need a number of cards. In this case, it's going to be 3. Okay, and I'm going to take 3 cards, like so, and put them in my hand, like that, until they're completely invisible. And they vanish and melt away. How many cards do you have?
14.
Pick them up. Deal them onto the table, one at a time.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 17.
Isn't that cool?
It is cool.
Great. Well, put your hand on top. Say stop.
Stop.
Number or letter?
Number.
2. Exactly the same thing. We take 2 cards, put it in our hand, just like that. They vanish completely. Check it out. You had 17?
17.
19.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
Right. So this is the cards across, which is one of the really great card tricks. And the first thing you have to do is prepare the deck by finding a 2 and a 3 together, or putting them together in the deck. So if we go through and we find there's a 3 and a 2 together, that's actually perfect. Cut those to the bottom and you're ready to go. Riffle shuffle, we'll keep those cards on the bottom, like so. And cut off between 10 or 12 cards. It doesn't matter how many they cut off. You now are going to take the cards and illustrate 1, 2, 3 as you count. And as you put these back, you're going to hold a break. Now a break is a simple little flesh break with the tip of the finger marking that position. And we're going to palm these cards from the top. The cards are palmed by pressing them up into the palm like so and gripping them in this position. And we'll get into the technique in a moment. So if you count those for me, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
15 cards. Hold on to those. Now as I push those towards you, I'm adding those cards on top. So now there are 3 extra cards on top. Okay. These cards are on the bottom. If I take small packets like so, this is called a Hindu shuffle, an Asian style shuffle as it's also known in the gambling fraternity. And as you take these, whenever they say stop, you place these on top, stepped to the side, and you lift up. And of course that was the bottom card, but this is a force, and it forces the number 3. You take that card, put these back to the bottom because now your 2 is here, or put it in the middle. Take 3 cards, and you're going to place them on the deck like so, so that if you let go with your thumb, they'll just fall right back down again. And that's what happens when you cover it with your hand. You just let those go, and it looks like you've put them in your hand, and they vanish. And when he counts, there will be 18 cards there instead of 15. And as he's counting, you secretly get a break, and you palm 2 more cards. Count out loud. Very good.
17.
And put your hand on top of those. And now we can do it again, right? Because we've added 2 more cards. Say stop. Is it a number? Yes, it's a 2. We take 2 cards, hide them in the hand, and they're under there. And you get to repeat the trick, and it's very powerful. Now, let's talk about the palm. This is one of the most difficult things you're going to learn. But I want you to see that trick first, because of all the tricks you can do in card magic, this is one of the most powerful. No cards are selected, but a very impossible thing happens. And it's all about that timing. The basic palm is to palm the top card alone. And to palm the top card alone, you're simply going to move that top card forward a little bit. Okay? By doing that, a little pressure at the front will pop that card up. And by pressing here, at this point in your fingers, you will find that this card will pop up into the palm. And the goal is to support it between the pinky and the base of your thumb so that when you relax your hand, it lies here, like so. Okay? Now, here's one of the lessons about card magic that many old books won't tell you. Your hand is a different size and shape to mine. So where it goes on your hand, the best place for it is determined by the size and shape of your hand. But this is the goal, is to support it not by holding the whole thing tightly like this, but by holding it just gently enough and relaxing your hand around it. This is what you must learn to do. And this is going to take some time. That ability to relax the hand is very important. If you do it right, you can pick up the deck, and that helps the hand look relaxed. You can hold the deck like this. Notice how that pinky, the first finger comes in a little bit, and that helps to make it relaxed. And this goal, to hold something in your hand and make your hand feel and look relaxed, is the hard part. Getting it off the top of the deck and into your palm by pushing it forward, pushing it up, getting your thumb out of the way, and then holding it and taking it away is going to take a lot of time. But if you get a break under any number of cards and essentially palm the whole deck, just as you relax for a second, just relax like so, you put your base of your thumb at that corner, your pinky is at that corner, and you can palm away all those cards above the break. And if you practice this, you'll find it's very easy to do this and then immediately go on top of that pile that's on the table. So if we've got some cards here, and I say, look, deal the cards one at a time. That's my 3 cards. I put them on top, and I relax. And so when I'm ready, I can simply say, put your hand on top. And that's a very simple way to palm. That's actually very deceptive. But again, the goal for you is to learn how to hold cards, 1, maybe 2 even, and feel and look relaxed. And that is going to take some time. Your hand has to get the muscle memory to be comfortable with those cards in there. There's no getting around it. Be very wary about this thumb. It's going to want to stick out like that. You want to relax that thumb, like so. And it's going to look impossible, but it isn't impossible. You just need to get used to it, okay? And when you get used to it, the card will be quite relaxed in your hand. A lot of really great tricks, you don't have to hold the card palmed for a very long time. Instead, you hide the card and you move directly to the next position. And that's what we're doing with this version of the cards across. I relax my hand. As soon as I'm ready, I've got the cards already here, I come over and I say, look after those cards. It's a very simple trick. It's a very, very powerful trick. And the method, the palm, is going to require a little bit of practice from you. It can be done completely invisibly. And if you know what you're doing, it can look perfect. But it's going to take you a little bit of time to get used to holding that card in your hand. And that's what I want you to work on for now. In the meantime, try pushing that card forward as little as you can. And then as you pretend to square the deck, it'll pop up. And then as you bring the deck up, pretend to square the deck on the sides and at the front. And gradually this will become more and more deceptive until it really looks like you couldn't possibly have stolen a card. This is the palm, and I agree this is an introduction to this technique. But now that you know this much, and you know the size and shape of your hands, you can adapt until that card sits comfortably and deceptively inside your hand. So now we're going to perform a very powerful little trick using the double lift. To begin, we're going to have a card selected, as before. A card is chosen. When they look at it, this is the Queen of Hearts. When they look at it, have them put it back in this position. And as you put these cards on top, you're going to hold one of those little breaks between the two packets. Again, with the flesh, not with the whole finger, just the flesh. And now you're here. I'm going to bring these cards to the top. Now you could just cut and bring the Queen of Hearts to the top, but to make it more deceptive, turn it into two cuts. And to do that, when I take it with my thumb, I'm going to lift up everything except for some of the cards on the bottom and put those on the top. And then everything under the break goes to the top. And this brings it to the top in two moves, not one, which is a lot more deceptive. So there's one cut, there's two cuts, and there it is on top. Okay, one more time. I got a break above the Queen, one cut and two cut, and it comes to the top. So now the Queen is secretly on the top. And we begin by picking up those two cards. And we say, I'm going to take a card, the 9 of diamonds. Is that your card? No. I'm going to place the 9 of diamonds underneath this glass. I'm then going to take another card. This is the 5 of hearts. The 5 of hearts is going to go here on top of the glass. So the 9 of diamonds is here, the 5 of hearts is here. And if I place the deck on top and do this, that 5 of hearts comes all the way to the top, like that. And if I do this, the 9 of diamonds comes all the way through the glass, like this. But what card is underneath the glass? What was the card you selected? The Queen of Hearts. And this is really just a couple of double lifts. I lift up, I turn over, the 5 of hearts goes on the bottom. Now that's actually the selection. I do another lift up, another double lift. This is the 6 of clubs. This goes here. But this is actually that 5 of hearts that we just showed. And when I put the deck on top of here, that 6 of clubs is still on top, so it can rise up to the top. The card underneath can rise through the glass all the way to the bottom. And then, of course, the selection is trapped underneath the glass. A very powerful little trick. This is based on a Peter Duffy trick. This is my version. It's called 2 up and 1 down. And there are very many ways to do it. So if you learn the double lift, you will have a very powerful move. Just don't use it too much. And if at all possible, when turning one card over, try to make sure that turning one card looks almost exactly the same as turning two cards. And if you can learn to do that, then you will make the unnatural move more natural by making it your natural move. And all that takes is practice. The next slide that we're going to introduce to you is called the pass. This is going to take a lot of practice. There are many ways to do the pass, and the concept is simple. Secretly, you're going to cut the deck. And to do this, you need to be able to cut it under misdirection, at least at the beginning. It is possible to cut the cards very quickly, and it's even possible to cut the cards in such a way that even if they're staring, they can't see that the cut has been made. We're not going to get into that right now. All I'm going to do is show you how to hold a break, enlarge the break by putting your finger inside, and then cut the deck quietly and secretly. This is the goal of the pass, quietly and secretly to cut the deck. Now what happens is you begin by taking a break somewhere in the middle, and this might be over a selection. So if the selection was in the middle and I made the pass, it would come to the top. So you have a break in the middle. You're going to bring your hand over the top. The second finger goes to this outside corner and your thumb goes to the inside corner, and you want to try and keep this edge together. But if you cover from the front, like so, you cover from the front, you can enlarge that break like by pulling down with the pinky. Okay? And by enlarging that break, you create a much wider gap between the two packets, covered from the front and supported at the back with the thumb and by the thumb at the side. You can push this finger into the break by rotating your hand into the break. So from here, I literally just push and end up deeper inside. And what this means is that I can grab this top packet and pull it around. And I do that by supporting the bottom packet. And as I hold the bottom packet, the top packet is simply pulled, brought around and underneath. And the first few times you do that, you are absolutely going to drop the cards. Okay? Now, a very simple way to give you more control is to curl this finger on the bottom. So that in this position, because this finger is curled in the bottom, when this comes around, it naturally ends up trapped here. And so it's much more control over that packet as it goes to the bottom. So from here to the bottom. By doing this move, learning how to quietly cut the deck, you will develop a very powerful weapon that can be refined and sped up. But no matter how fast you do it, you have to be able to do it as quietly as possible. And I'm going to teach you a trick right now by Roy Walton, one of the great geniuses of card magic, who's very kindly allowed me to teach this over the years, which will allow you to use the pass to perform a very powerful, very baffling trick. But the trick itself creates the moment that allows you to conceal this action. Okay? It's so good, you could even just cut the deck and they probably wouldn't notice. So again, make your break, hold on to the edges, support the deck. This is very hard. I understand this will take time. Get your finger inside so that you can clip the top packet between these fingers and this finger. Support the bottom, curl that finger, and pull this around. And that's it. That's the pass. There are many types of pass. The pass sometimes goes the other way, so the bottom packet comes around the top. This is another type of pass. There are many kinds, but if you concentrate on this one, you'll learn how to control 52 objects as if they were simply 2 objects. And in card magic, by treating this 52 object item as if it was just one object, this is the secret to making the cards obey your commands. Stop thinking them as 52 items that could go anywhere and start thinking them as one continuous chain of items. And this, of course, especially applies to the pass, secretly cutting the deck. Do it slowly until you feel the control. And once you have that control, you can try this trick. It's going to take a lot of practice. Here's the trick. To begin, I'm going to tell somebody that I am going to remove a secret arrangement of cards from this deck. I'm not going to show them what those cards are until the very end. But at the end, they'll understand why I didn't show them. So without letting them see what cards I remove, I'm going to remove all of the black cards. Now remember, they don't see this. But a little touch, a subtlety that I've added to Roy Walton's trick is that I'm going to leave 3 black cards behind. Like this one. Doesn't matter what cards they are, this one. And one more, this one here. and I'll take out all the rest. It's very important that you do this so they don't see what you're removing. Okay? Up jog, this is a common term used in Magic to up jog the cards. Move them up like this. If you were holding them this way and moving them out the way, this would be out jogging. But we up jog all the black cards, take them, don't let them get a glimpse, and put them on the table. And now go back and remove these three very quickly, as if it doesn't matter what you take, and place these into 3 different parts of the packet. And without letting anybody see anything, shuffle these cards like so. Now you want to use, I use 2 jokers quite often, but at the beginning of this trick, let's say we left 2 queens out like this. 2 jokers would be perfect. Tell them you're going to take the special arrangement and put it between these 2 cards. Okay? And to make sure you can't cheat, take the remaining half and drop everything in the middle so they can clearly see the special arrangement trapped between the queens. And tell them they can remove any 3 cards and put them in their hand. So there's 1, 2, and 3, but not to look at those cards. So they have 3 cards in their hand. Once they have those cards in their hand, you're going to create the moment of misdirection that you'll use to make that pass. You gather up these cards and you lift up or break anywhere around about the middle. You put your pinky inside and you give them a simple instruction. You tell them to take the cards in their hand and deal them face down into a row of 3 cards. And as they do that, as they make that action, you quietly cut the deck with the pass, like so. The 3 cards they chose will of course all be black because everything between the 2 queens was black. But because of that pass, when you spread these and you take these away, all of the cards between the queens will now be red. And what you say is the special arrangement that you took out was all red, which of course is a lie, except for 3 cards, which were black. Okay? It's a really powerful trick. It appears as if you put 3 black cards in amongst all the reds and they somehow found them by instinct. So it's a very powerful trick. But it's the moment it creates for the pass that I believe makes it really special. That moment is a great example of natural misdirection. Misdirection that doesn't make them feel like you made them look away or that you did anything unusual or asked them to do something that wasn't natural to the situation. Because they took these cards that were in their hand and dealt them, all attention is going to be here. So when you make your pass, it's guaranteed to work. And this is the situation. You have a block of color between the other block of color, and if you make the pass anywhere in the middle, that naturally exchanges the 2 blocks of color. That's how it works. So you have to learn how to get that little break, support the deck, get your finger inside, pull that packet around, and do it all quietly in the moment that you create in the trick. And I guarantee this trick is one of the best possible ways to learn the pass. It's called Pass at Red by Roy Walton, with a little touch from me. And this is a move that's going to take a lot of practice. Don't give up. I guarantee once you get the hang of it, you'll be moving on to the more advanced techniques very quickly.